The snowstorm howled across the empty plains like a wounded beast, dragging needles of ice across the ground and swallowing every sound except the cracking of frozen branches and the faint, broken gasps of the girl crawling through the white wilderness, her dress torn, her feet bleeding, her breath a trembling ghost in the icy air. They called her lame when they pushed her from the wagon. The same people who had promised her shelter, promised her mercy, promised her a life better than the one she fled, yet as soon as her injured leg failed to keep pace with their traveling convoy, as soon as she stumbled and slowed them down, they turned cruel, claiming she was a burden, a curse on their journey west, a waste of food and time. And before she could plead or explain the pain in her ankle, two rough hands grabbed her, dragged her through the snow, and cast her aside like unwanted cargo. She remembered their voices, the men grumbling about losing daylight, the women whispering that she'd never make it through the winter, the children staring at her with pity before their mothers pulled them away as if kindness were dangerous. Then the wagon leader, a tall, sharp-eyed man with frost in his beard, looked down at her one last time and said, "You ain't our problem now, girl. Crawl if you want to live," before snapping the reins and driving off into the storm until their silhouettes faded into the white void. She lay there for a long moment, unable to cry because the cold stole everything, her breath, her tears, her hope, until survival tugged at her heart like a weak but persistent flame, urging her to move, to fight, to crawl, because dying here in the snow meant they were right about her, and she would not give them the satisfaction. So she forced her numb fingers into the drifts, pulling herself forward inch by agonizing inch, her injured leg trailing behind her like a dead weight, each motion sending fire up her spine. Hours passed, she couldn't be sure how many, and the world dimmed around her, shrinking into a tunnel of cold and pain, the blizzard swirling like a living creature around her fragile body. She whispered promises to herself to stay awake, to keep breathing, but every heartbeat grew slower, heavier, and she wondered if this was how small animals felt when they curled under trees to freeze, alone and unseen. But somewhere beyond the storm, a faint rhythmic thunder pierced the wind, the sound of hooves striking ice, steady and strong, coming closer, then stopping. She froze, terrified that the wagon group had returned only to mock her, or perhaps bandits had found her to finish what others had started. She forced her head up, snow-crusted in her lashes, and saw a shadow pass through the storm. Broad shoulders, a tall frame, a fur-lined coat whipping in the wind, and behind him a massive dark horse snorting clouds of warm breath. The stranger dismounted slowly, cautiously, like a man approaching a wounded creature. His boots crunched through the snow as he knelt beside her, lifting her chin gently with one gloved hand. She saw eyes, storm gray, steady, unexpectedly kind, as he studied her face. "Good God," he murmured, voice like gravel warmed by fire. "What in hell happened to you, sweetheart?" She tried to answer, but only a faint rasp escaped her frozen lips. He brushed the snow from her hair, his jaw tightening with anger, not at her, but at whoever had abandoned her. His gaze traveled to her injured leg, swollen and bruised, then to the faint wagon tracks disappearing into the distance. He inhaled sharply, as if piecing together a cruel truth. "They left you," he muttered, shaking his head. "Left you to die out here." She expected judgment, pity, maybe even disgust, but instead he shrugged off his thick fur coat and wrapped it around her trembling body, pulling her against his chest to share his warmth. The world felt softer in his arms, the storm quieter, her fear fading just enough for her to breathe again. "Don't you worry," he whispered, lifting her effortlessly, one arm under her back, the other beneath her knees. "I'm taking you home, and whoever did this, they'll pray they never cross my land again." She didn't know his name, but she knew safety when she felt it. And for the first time since the storm began, she let herself close her eyes, not because she was giving up, but because she finally felt she didn't have to fight alone. The ranch house stood like a fortress of warmth against the brutal winter, its windows glowing with golden lamplight as the lonely, rich rancher carried the half-frozen girl inside, pushing open the heavy wooden door with his shoulder while keeping her cradled securely in his arms, his breath ragged from the cold and from the quiet fury he felt at the cruelty she had suffered. The moment they crossed the threshold, heat enveloped them from the stone fireplace blazing at the room's center, and she shivered as her frozen skin adjusted, her weak hands clutching at his coat as if she feared he might disappear the moment she let go. "Easy now. You're safe," he murmured, his deep voice gentle, as he lowered her carefully onto a thick buffalo skin rug near the fire. The warmth felt unreal to her, like a dream she didn't dare trust, and for a moment she simply stared at the flames dancing before her eyes, while the rancher knelt beside her, unwrapping the heavy fur he'd bundled, her in and checking her injuries with rough hands that somehow moved with surprising tenderness. When he saw the swollen, twisted limb she'd been dragging through the snow, he inhaled sharply, jaw clenching, the muscle in his cheek twitching, with anger at the faceless people who'd abandoned her. "They left you crippled and helpless in the middle of a storm," he muttered, almost to himself, though she could hear the simmering rage beneath his breath. "May God forgive them, because I'm not sure I can." She wanted to speak, wanted to explain, or thank him, or ask him why a stranger would